Welcome to the 59th episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Rutherford. Stay tuned for my interview with Jon Merz, author of the Lawson Vampire series and many other thriller novels. Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Jon Merz. Merz has written more than a dozen thriller and dark suspense novels, including the Lawson Vampire series of novels. The latest Lawson novel, the Kinsey, is available in bookstores now. And the previous novels in the Lawson series are all available as ebooks. Merz also wrote several novels for the Rogue Angel series published by Gold Eagle. Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Sure. Well, if listeners haven't heard about your latest book, The Kinsey, yet, can you describe what the book is about?
Sure. Lawson works as a fixer, so he's sort of the guy that the vampire council turns to make sure that their secret existence remains secure. And in the Kinsey, Lawson's pretty burned out after a number of adventures, so he heads over to Japan for some rest and martial art training. But he no sooner steps off the plane than winds up in the middle of a Yakuza turf war and finds out that all of it's being orchestrated by a shadowy figure known as the Kinsey, who is actually trying to create an army of vampire-human hybrids. So he's got his work cut out for him. Fortunately, his girlfriend, Talia, shows up, and the two of them get right into it. It's crazy, nonstop action.
Great. Well, obviously, vampires are popular in pop culture. With Lawson, you have a unique take on vampires. I'm curious, can you remember the initial idea behind Lawson and what you have in mind when you created Lawson?
Yeah, Lawson came about, he was actually a short story back around the year 2000, and it was literally the case of, you got your horror on my espionage, you got your espionage on my horror, the old Reese's peanut butter cup commercial there. And when I showed it to some people and they said, well, you should really turn this into a novel, I thought, well, geez, there's already so many vampire novels out already. How am I going to make this stand out? And so I sat down and I thought, well, what if they weren't undead at all, but rather they were a separately evolving line of humanity, sort of a fork in the evolutionary path. And over time, when other cavemen were drinking the blood of animals that they'd slain, thinking it would give them their powers, this branch of humanity actually started drinking the blood of other humans they had slain, thinking it would give them their powers, and it actually did. It actually winds up infusing them with life force energy and all this other stuff that I drew from Asian philosophy. So pretty interesting take, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Well, your books are strongly grounded in martial arts, and I know that you've studied a form of ninjutsu for the past 20 years. What is it about martial arts that appeals to you?
Ooh, let's see. I grew up, with the proverbial bully leaning over my shoulder. And around about 15, I got tired of being bullied around, so I started looking at martial arts. And at the time when you're being hassled by these great big apes in school, the idea of ninja who can disappear in a cloud of smoke or do this crazy supernatural stuff, I thought it was kind of cool. So I started looking around for a teacher that could do it. And for a while, it was actually supposedly illegal to teach it in Massachusetts, where I'm from. And so I went with some other styles for a while. I did Taekwondo, Aikido, Judo, Kung Fu. And but then around about 20 some odd years ago now, I actually found my teacher through an article in Black Belt magazine. And the authentic stuff is a whole lot different from the stuff you see on HBO or stuff like that. But it's a blast. It's really saved my life a number of times. So I can't say enough good things about it.
And so who is your teacher, and what is the style exactly that you train in?
It's Togakure-ryu Ninjutsu under the Bujinkan organization. My teacher is Mark Davis. He runs a school, the Boston Martial Arts Center, bostonmartialarts.com. And yeah, he's fantastic. He's got a great background in all these other styles, and he's a real big guy. He used to play college football, so walking in and meeting him was was very intimidating. And then the Grandmaster was over here a number of years after I started, and he's all of about the size of Yoda. And watching him take my teacher and literally throw him from one end of the room to the other was pretty awe-inspiring. So it's a really old system, but it's extremely practical for self-protection in today's world as well.
And so with the practice that you do, are you like doing some like serious contact sparring?
We don't really necessarily call it the contact sparring. We certainly put the gloves on and go at it. It's more, the phrase we use for it is randori, which is sort of almost the idea of catching chaos is literally what we call it. And what we do is we'll start with sort of a base idea. Okay, here comes a punch, and here's a response to that punch. But now, what if he pulls his arm back a little bit quicker than this technique allows, and it starts to fall apart? What we do next, and it's sort of an ongoing thing like that. But there are other times when we absolutely do put the gloves on and go at it pretty full force. I'm lucky. My school is one of the few that actually does it. My teacher's a firm believer in really putting it on the line and making sure that it'll work for you when you need it to.
Right.
There are some ninjutsu schools that are very like, oh, we don't do that. Our stuff is for combat, so if we try to put the gloves on, we end up killing each other. That to me is sort of a cop out because how do you know if it's going to work if you don't put a little pressure on yourself? So
exactly.
I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate to have the teacher that I have. Yeah.
That's great. Well, how do you feel your training in martial arts has impacted your writing or your approach to writing?
The thing I hear back probably the most is the reality of the fight scenes that I write. Having served in the Air Force and done protection work as well as the martial arts, I've been in a number of situations, so I know pretty much what goes into making up a fight scene and making it read real, so to speak. So I get a lot of email from service members, from police officers who have been in harrowing situations themselves, and they come across a passage where Lawson has to fight, and it just rings true to them. So I think my background has definitely helped in that capacity.
Interesting. Well, I know that you recently announced that you have a deal with a publisher for a new 3-book fantasy series. Have you always been interested in fantasy, and do you feel that your approach in writing fantasy will differ from the other more thriller or dark suspense novels that you've written?
Yeah, when I growing up, I pretty much devoured everything, and fantasy was one of the first genres that really appealed to me. So I really read heavily throughout my teen years especially. So I've always had a special place in my heart for fantasy. It's just been a matter of, getting around to it. It's going to be interesting. This is a new genre for me. I'm working with a great editor. And since you mentioned that this won't actually be airing for a little bit,
sure.
I can actually tell you that it's Bane Books, and my editor is Jim Mintz. So we're doing basically a 3-book series that is ostensibly about a recent graduate of a ninjutsu school who sort of has to go out in an alternate world and find his way and embark on various adventures and so forth and so on. So I think coming at it, from more of an Eastern perspective with martial arts and some of the ninjutsu, being able to work into that is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to be a learning experience for me, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. That's great.
I don't know if you have done a lot of reading in recent years of some of the newer fantasy. I feel like there's a renaissance going on beyond just George R.R. Martin that I feel like a lot of people aren't really tuning into. There's a lot of kind of new fantasy writers on the horizon that are doing some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody talks about George R. R. Martin, obviously for good reason, but
Without a doubt, I love his stuff.
Yeah, my agent is great in that anytime I try something new, he always sends me a written list, and he's so well read himself that he's literally able to sit down and jot down. Okay, here's 20 books. If you want to write in this genre, here's 20 books that you need to read. Some of them are really good, and some of them are really bad. But
right.
So that's good. So he said he's actually preparing that for me right now. So it'll be interesting to compare what he suggests I read with what some of the stuff that I've already read. He did that with me when I was doing a YA series. So I spent the entire summer just rediscovering my love for young adult fiction and reading some great series like Ranger's Apprentice and the Alex Rider books, and some that weren't so good. But yeah, I'm one of those writers that's always trying to improve my game. So to me, it's just a nonstop learning process. Anything I do to better deliver entertaining stories to my readers, that's what I'm going to do. So.
Great. Well, as you know, being someone who's in the midst of it, the publishing industry is undergoing massive changes with the rise of ebooks and the ease of self-publication. You've successfully self-published some of your backlist books as ebooks. What lessons do you think you've learned in terms of selling ebooks and building a readership online?
Well, let's see. First of all, I can't say enough good things about ebooks, since right now it actually enables me to pull in a monthly paycheck, which is, as a writer, is almost unheard of. So it's fantastic that these avenues and opportunities for writers have come about. I would say, one of the most important things is to make sure that your ebook is properly formatted. Understandably so, people are not very forgiving when it comes to finding strange characters that don't translate well from Microsoft Word over to ML file. But as far as building an audience, I actually, there's a proliferation right now of all these books on, I sold 20 million ebooks in 4 months, and here's how I did it. And I've read a lot of those books, and unfortunately, they don't actually sit down and step by step lay out exact plans for doing that. So I read one in early July, and I was annoyed that I'd spent $5 just reading personal anecdotes that I sat down on the 4th of July and just wrote a real quick 7,200 word how-to of steps and tactics that I actually use to sell thousands of copies every month. I mean, I'm not selling millions, but I'm selling thousands, and it's certainly giving me some comfort financially. So I think one of the best things to do is the use of Twitter, but using it properly.
And did I understand you correctly that you published that book that you wrote, the 7,200 word?
Yep, it's called How to Really Sell Ebooks, and it's available on the Nook and on the Kindle. And I use a program called TweetAdder, which is a fantastic marketing software piece that I've actually been using for about 2 to 3 years now, and I can't say enough good things about it. It's absolutely fantastic, and a portion of the book is actually devoted to explaining how to use TweetAdder and use it to build up your Twitter followers and go find people that are actually interested in reading ebooks, for example, as opposed to other things where you might not be properly targeting people. So so the book is it's no nonsense. There are no personal anecdotes in there. No, what was me? I was doing this, and now I'm driving around in a Maserati. It's literally here's what I do. So,
right.
It's got about 25-star reviews out on Amazon, so people are really finding it to be useful, which is great because I'm one of those people that believes a rising tide floats all boats. So the more people who are successful, the better. So
great. Well, what advice do you have for someone who's an aspiring writer who may be trying to sell their own novels and short stories?
Yeah, it's a tough time out there right now. As you mentioned, all the the flux that's going on with the publishing industry. I would honestly say, make sure, and I'm sure everybody else says this as well, because it's really the one golden rule that everybody should abide by. Make sure your stuff is absolutely the best that it can possibly be. Go over it countless times until you can't even stand the thought of opening the file back up and looking at the title of it again. That's the key right now to, whether you choose to independently publish it or whether you choose to go the traditional route. Making sure that the story is as good as it can be. That's number one, absolutely. And if you do that, especially if you opt to independently publish, you're going to find an audience. I mean, there are millions of people with e-readers right now, and you're going to find your niche eventually. It might take a while, but if you choose to publish it independently, there's going to be somebody out there that loves your work, and then it's just a matter of expanding that audience once you find it. So I've brought out a project couldn't find a home in traditional publishing, but I put them out as ebooks, and I get these great emails from people saying, "Oh my God, this is a great novel! I can't believe it wasn't published." Well, yeah, because it didn't fit traditional publishing's model, but with the brave new world that we're entering right now, it's a fantastic time. So provided that your story's as good as it's going to get, there's a lot of opportunity out there right now, and I'm finding every day that your story sits on your hard drive is a day it's not making you any money. So
sure.
Once it gets as good as it can get it out there.
Right. And what are you working on now?
Ooh, let's see. I have a new Lawson short story that I'm finishing up. I have just started writing the first words to the next Lawson novel, The Ripper, which will hopefully be out by the end of the year. And then I've got that fantasy series that is going to be absorbing my fall schedule, it looks like. So, a lot of fun stuff. And then plus we're doing, I started up a production company, New Ronin Entertainment, with my good friend Jamie Hassett. And we're bringing Lawson to TV. So we're in the midst of actually finalizing the plans to get the pilot shoot going on that. So that's sort of craziness as well. So it's good we're doing the interview now, because in a few months, so, it's a great time. But I can't complain. It's what I love, and it's what I've always wanted to do. So everything's great.
Great. Well, where can people find you online?
My personal website is Jon, Jonf, is in bank, Merz, MERZ.net. And if they're interested in finding out more about Lawson, I send them out to the sort of the official TV/book website that we have set up, thefixer.tv, nice and easy. And we've got some clips out there, news and information about the ebooks. We're going to be bringing them out in print as well, and plans are underway to do audio versions of them. So lots of great stuff happening. Yeah.
Great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Jon Merz, author of many thriller novels. Merz's latest novel, The Kinsey, is available in bookstores now, and you can also find many of Jon's novels available as his ebooks, as he just discussed. Jon, thanks for doing the interview.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It was great to be here.
Hi, this is author Peter O'Rulian, author of The Unremembered, and you're listening to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to my latest podcast. If you have a chance, please leave a review of the podcast in iTunes. It only takes a moment. Until next time, read some good books and be well.
We did it again. Verizon was just named America's most reliable network by Root Metrics for the 16th time in a row, proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon builds networks. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network, Verizon. Best and most reliable based on Root Metrics reports from second half 2013 to first half 2021 of 3 operators on all network types combined, not specific to 5G networks.
In South Dakota, we're looking forward to exploring new roads and wide open spaces. When you're ready to travel, go great places. Learn more at travelsouthdakota.com.